Well, hello, visitors to and denizens of the YouTubeverse. I'm John, your social hermit in the woods, and in today's video, I'm going to try to make and explain how to make Songyobing. Okay, I keep getting told I mispronounce that horribly, so I'm just going to give up and use the English translation, which is green onion pancake. These are kind of like a very flaky tortilla with sliced green onion in them. They're a Chinese kind of street food delicacy that I happen to really like. You eat them hot as a snack, usually with some kind of refreshing beverage. When I spent about a month at one point living in central China and speaking very little Chinese and reading less, Bangs were one of the few things that I could reliably go into the grocery store and get in the frozen section, and then you just pan fry the frozen ones to make yourself. And today we're going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to make some, and I'm going to keep most of them frozen, but we'll also go ahead and pan fry one to show how the whole process is done and show you how delicious they are. So stick around. So we're going to start off with the basics. 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, now let's just blend that with a fork. I would say fold it in. Some of you might get the joke if you're fans of the TV show Schitt's Creek. We'll fold in the salt and baking powder. Once that's fully mixed, we're going to add oil. Now you could use an olive oil. I'm going to use corn oil today. Something with a mild flavor. There we go. We're going to use an entire cup corn oil. These are very oily, these pancakes. And 1 cup of lukewarm water. Go back to our fork and we'll blend this in. Then you go to using your hands to get the final mixture. Now, this has a lot of oil in it. That's the way it's supposed to be. And it makes it very soft and pliable, which is also the way it's supposed to be. Now, we're going to take a lightly floured surface here. We're going to turn this out. And we're going to try to break this into 16 pieces. Okay, we're going to break that into 16 more or less even portions. Flatten them lightly with your hands. And we're going to let those sit under a towel for about a half an hour. Meanwhile, we can go and take some green onions and dice that up. Okay, I'm going to go with about 4 green onions here. They've been rinsed. Trim off the ends. Trim off the far tops. And then we're going to take these and we're going to dice these into little pieces, both the white and the green part. And we'll set the diced onion aside in a little dish here. We're also going to take a little bowl, a little cup here. We're not done with oil. We're going to take more of whatever our primary oil is we used in the cooking, and some sesame oil. And we're going to mix that into this little dish here. Now, I'm not going to measure this exactly, but I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of the corn oil and about 1 tablespoon of the sesame oil. And we'll blend those together. Okay, after these have sat for a bit, here's the secret of what we're going to do. We're going to put them onto another rolling sheet, and we're going to roll them out. Because of the high oil content, they roll quite easily. And don't worry too much about the shape at this stage. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our additional mixed oil here, and we're going to coat a little bit of that on it. Then we're going to take some coarse salt. I'm using a coarse salt grinder here. And then we're going to take some of our lovely fresh onion and sprinkle that. Now you notice I'm just kind of putting it kind of at random on there. We're going to take this and we're going to roll it. This is wherein these get their special texture. Well, it's not completely special. It's similar to a two-hot latte or a croissant. Okay, so we roll that. We're going to squish it back up together now. I'm going to flatten it again. And now you're going to roll it out again. Try to not have too many of the onions escape. Easier said than done. Dough version of a Damascus steel kind of effect, which is what you want with all the layers, and so that's just fine. There we go. That is a finalized, ready to freeze or pan fry Cong bing. So we're going to do that process of rolling it out, salt, mixed oil, onions, roll it up, and flatten it out again. We're going to do that for all 16. As you make them, stack them with bits of parchment paper or wax paper in between to keep them from sticking. For storage, you can just take the uncooked ones on the parchment paper stacks, put them inside a Ziploc bag, and get as much of the air out as possible. And then freeze that, and then just peel off the ones you want to cook and cook them later. And now for the final step, whether from fresh or your frozen stash. What we're going to do is we're going to get a large non-stick fry pan and get that over kind of medium-high heat and get it fairly hot. And then we're going to take our Cong bings and into the pan. So this has enough oil in it that it's kind of baking and frying all at the same time, which is how it gets its flavor. And because you did the rolling with the oil layer inside, it's going to have this like Damascus steel multi-layered effect, and it's going to kind of flake apart, kind of vaguely like a croissant, or I think I mentioned earlier, a two-hot latte, which is a type of a Finnish dessert cake. So we pop this in here. It's sizzling nicely, and we're going to give that about a minute, minute and a half until we start getting nice bubbles forming on it. Much like a tortilla, you might be able to see there's some bubbles beginning to form here from the baking powder. If you're not sure whether it's done, you can kind of lift one edge and peek a little bit. That's not quite ready. Okay. Flip it over. Second side usually goes a little bit faster. So if that was a minute and a half for the first side, maybe a minute for the second side. To taste. These tend to be done quite dark when you get them like in a restaurant. And now the moment of truth. So you want to eat these while they're still nice and hot, which is why you don't pre-cook them all and freeze them after cooking them. And usually with something refreshing. Nobody would claim these are tremendously healthy given all the oil in them. But they're very tasty and they're very calorie rich, and sometimes that's the kind of snack you want. And you know, these are not quite as thin as the properly made ones by people who really know what they're doing and or have factory equipment. But the taste is really good. This is a pretty passable Cong bing. I would say this is a success. So, until next time, this is John, your sociable hermit in the woods, signing off.